Hello, everybody, and we are live with Rewind-A-Dynamite here on this Tuesday night edition of the show. I am John Pollock, joined as always by Wai Ting, where we are going to be going through tonight's edition of Dynamite that is going to largely center on the last 10 minutes of the show, which unfortunately saw a premature ending to the main event between Jon Moxley and Hangman Page, where Hangman Page took a pretty hard lariat and just like inside out lariat and came down at like an awkward angle, but in watching it back, it's really hard to get a sense of what exactly occurred. But, you could see like he was just laying there motionless, making the signal to Paul Turner, who you could just see alert Doc Sampson at ringside, who is in there checking on him. And it becomes evident very quickly that this is not some kind of an idea for a finish. This is, in fact, an injury that has been sustained, and the match is waved off. There is about 10 minutes left in the broadcast, and obviously they had an angle planned with MJF, so it's unknown what kind of improvisation they had to do to get to the announcement of Moxley and MJF that obviously they wanted to go off the air with. But number one is hoping for that this is not as serious as it came off on television, because it seemed pretty serious. They were not shooting Hangman Page while they were tending to him, but they had to loosen the bottom rope and take him out. It looked like there was a stretcher out there that they alluded to, but none of this was shown on the broadcast. They just stayed on the announcers. A very scary scene, among the kind of moment on a wrestling show that sadly we've had a few of them that you have seen in real time, and this was definitely leaving people very concerned after the broadcast, and we're just minutes removed from it.
Yeah, absolutely. We are recording this like minutes after the show ends. So I'm hoping by the time most people listen to this, there is something a bit more definitive about it, because what we're kind of left with right now with how that injury might have looked and just the abrupt ending of the match, it could be anything from, something like a separated shoulder to something, involving the spine. We don't really know enough information at this point in time. So I'm hoping we get that. And I'm certainly hoping that, it is something that's not serious. But, your immediate first thought goes to the worst, unfortunately, like when it comes to, injuries involving like the top, the upper part of the body. And, God, it would be just incredibly tragic. So I certainly hope he's okay. And they of course had to scramble to try to come up with a way to conclude the show that they intended to with the MJF thing. And we'll talk about it creatively, of course, but of course beyond anything fictitious, we're hoping the participant injured here is okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think should be brought up, because you and I have brought it up in other cases where it's not been the result, and that is when an injury occurs and, well, we've got to get to the finish. And I'm sure there would be situations where even something serious like that, okay, Moxley just rolls him up and could do unknown further damage too. Like, the right call was made. Just wave the match off. The finish does not matter. Like, that is so secondary. And I'm glad that was the default call here. And there was not any sort of, that mentality of, well, it's a big match. We've got to finish the match. We've got our live television show to think about first. No, you have an injured human in the ring. That is your one and only priority.
We're way beyond that. I certainly hope,
Well, you would think so, Wai, but I mean, we've seen concussed individuals continue in matches. We have seen very serious injuries where, I mean, a very famous one with like Steve Austin and Owen Hart, and we still have to have a finish with a roll up. You know what I mean? Like, it's and granted that's an older reference, but that mentality still exists where you get to the finish of a match at all costs. I'm very glad that did not appear to enter anyone's mind here.
You will get no complaint from any member of the audience for this match stopping when it did. In fact, I think you'll probably see more praise than anything. We are all well aware about this being what wrestling be a fictitious scripted program, and a man's health is far more important than any sort of entertainment that a scripted program can provide. So this should be the norm, and I'm glad to see that it was tonight.
So this injury only occurred about under 25 minutes ago. So we are unlikely to have any kind of update unless one comes down over the next hour that we are discussing this. But we'll obviously be monitoring that and keep it locked on the website. Of course, if there are any updates to come out, we are wishing the best for Hangman Page. It was very unfortunate, and hopefully we have good news at the end of this story. So we'll move on from that and just talk about a couple of the news items from today before we will talk about Dynamite itself on Tuesday, which did avoid any issues from the baseball game, which ended at about 7:10 p.m. So there was plenty of time before Dynamite. I don't know if it will play any kind of factor on Dynamite. I mean, there was the theory that you could have this large audience that has just watched the baseball game, but with 50 minutes between Dynamite, I don't know if it'll have any big impact, any impact at all, really, on Dynamite. It's more so the Dynamite audience finding the show a night earlier. But AEW had some big news to release on Tuesday, and that is a contract extension for Chris Jericho, who has now signed a 3-year extension through the end of 2025. The deal he was on prior to this one was going to expire right at the beginning of 2024. So he has signed on. This will go through the end of 2025 when Chris will be 55 years old by that time. And I think that it really does tell you I think very much the same mentality of Jon Moxley, that the idea of Jericho riding out his contract and having that lingering doubt for a year of will he stay, will he go? Jericho did not want to have any of that, even though that might have been best for his bargaining position. Like, he wanted to sign on for more time. He's also going to be taking on additional roles with the company as a creative advisor and producer. So adding that, similar to the Jon Moxley duties on his contract as well. So it's more so just notable the fact that Jericho, for many talents, like looking at that time frame, you ride out your deal and then you try to bid up your price. But he is staying put with AEW, where he will be in his mid-50s by the time this deal is up.
Does it prevent them from being able to negotiate? Like, if they signed on at this moment, like does it prevent any sort of bargaining, with competitor?
I mean, when you're under contract, that is, it's not to say it doesn't happen, but it is something that is, I guess, discouraged
okay.
when you are under contract.
I would just suspect that, like, Chris Jericho is probably at least like doing what he can to negotiate the fair market value for somebody of his abilities. And yeah, it's AEW is a great place for him at the moment, certainly. Obviously, he is of a much higher stock than he was when he initially left the WWE, but nonetheless, with the way that company is going, I don't necessarily see a role of a similar caliber for Chris Jericho if he were to enter. But for AEW, he provides tremendous value. Not only is he still, at this point, 3 years later, I think one of the top stars with the biggest mainstream name, he's providing an incredible leadership role for the people in the back, incredible knowledge, incredible ability to elevate talents, via his two factions full of people now that he's managed to elevate, not to mention Ring of Honor. He is now arguably the biggest tool that they have to improve and get that brand a potential TV spot.
Well, and it's also the timing of it, signing now versus, when his deal was going to be up, which again was early 2024. By the time that period would occur, these new television contracts would be probably set by then. I mean, they wouldn't, the current deals wouldn't have expired yet, but the new terms would have likely been negotiated. So you would be talking at a position where these companies would probably have more revenue than ever to go after talent. And I am sure snatching a Chris Jericho away from AEW, I'm sure WWE will put a very high price tag on that ability to take a Jericho away. And who is to say where a Jericho will be at 55? I would imagine this could very well be his last regular performer contract at this
Chris
point.
Jericho at 55 will be like most people at 35, I bet. He might even be in better shape at 55 than he is now.
He could be.
This is, you can argue like this might have been the best year for him to negotiate, just given his body of work and the incredible physical shape he seems to be in.
Well, more than that, it tells me that if, when this company started and you had your EVPs in place, it seems with Tony Khan at present, his main pillars are Jericho, Moxley, and Danielson. I think those are the three guys, and he has just inked two of them up, and he's got Danielson under, he's year one of, I believe, a 3-year deal. So he's got those three for multiple years as kind of that core. And I think he very much values them and that's very evident in the contracts. These are not just simply wrestler contracts. They come with added responsibilities. Like they are the leaders of this company from a wrestler standpoint.
Yeah. In Jericho's case, I mean, the role of producer and creative advisor, I wonder if it simply formalizes roles that he probably has taken on informally anyway within the company. But
It might. It's also would be very interesting to note. Do these contracts constitute them as employees as well?
Right.
Given these roles.
Yeah. Do we know like exactly what type of contract Jericho had even prior to this one? Did he have any further role beyond just being talent with AEW?
Well, I mean, he was one right at the beginning who stated he did not want to be an EVP or anything like that. So, I mean, he had signed initially and then signed a new deal. That was the one that took him to 2024. So I don't know necessarily if that entailed anything above and beyond the first deal that he signed. So this would technically be deal number 3 he's signed with AEW. So it's a very stable signing for AEW to be able to get a guy that, listen, I think anyone that would be, a value to WWE, but even more so a big player to take away from AEW, you're in a very advantageous position. And Jericho and Moxley have now very much publicly stated their loyalty to this company when they could have played both sides and probably gotten incredible offers from WWE and are opting not to and extending their time with AEW. Like Moxley will be 40 by the time his deal is up. Jericho 55. Like they are committing for many, many years when, the game for a lot of these guys, like MJF is the opposite. It's, short-term deals and just drive up your bidding war between these two companies for your talents. Mm-hmm. So that is the Chris Jericho news. Ring of Honor, a bit of news coming out of tonight's show. They announced that Final Battle is going to take place on Saturday, December 10th in Arlington, Texas. And it is going to be an afternoon show at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Central. So they will, they noted on the broadcast that there is no college football that it will contend with. It will also avoid going head-to-head with the UFC pay-per-view that night. So Ring of Honor will have the afternoon to itself on pay-per-view. And Tony Khan did an interview with SI.com, and in it spoke about their plans here to have another pay-per-view this year and the hope of having a weekly show in 2023. So it looks like we are punting on a TV show until at least next year. I don't think anyone was expecting by the time it's October now that Ring of Honor would be launching on TV anytime soon, but we will see. That's the great unknown is the television situation. And it would seem like this Final Battle show, given that you would think Chris Jericho holds this title until at least then, could be the most successful Ring of Honor pay-per-view they've ever put on in the company's entire 20-year history, if you have the right matchup.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, at this stage, I think with the increased presence of Ring of Honor, with I think Tony Khan perhaps making a bigger effort, putting the titles and on bigger names and getting bigger names onto the show, I can't necessarily see like buy rates going down. I think the goal is always likely to try to get Ring of Honor pay-per-view buy rates up to a similar level to AEW's, and I feel like you still see a lot of potential for exponential growth for Ring of Honor, the bigger presence it has on TV.
Yeah, I think if you did, like if it's a Jericho Samoa Joe or Jericho against whatever your former ROH champ is, I think Samoa Joe is the one face that they attach to the final battle graphic. It would seem like Jericho and Joe, that's a big main event for ROH, and then you couple it with FTR defending against whatever team it is. They could get a rematch with FTR and Aussie Open on that show. Did you get to see that over the weekend?
I have not, no, but that is a wonderful idea for a rematch. Yeah.
That match was stellar. It was incredible. I had a lot of downtime this weekend. I watched a lot of pro wrestling this weekend, including FTR and Aussie Open.
Do you care to at least tell us where it ranks amongst your top of the year thus far?
I would put it among the top matches of the year, not just tag matches of the year. I think when it comes to FTR, it's the two Briscoes matches, the Young Bucks match that they had on TV, and this one. And I don't want to be guilty of recency bias, but I think there's going to be a lot of support for this Aussie Open match as the best of all of them. And that's some very high praise, because you can make arguments for all of these tag matches. I think those were four incredible tag matches that they have had this year, and others that you could mix in there, but those are the big four that come to mind. I just thought this match was damn near perfect. Like, it was really incredible. The closing sequence is just perfection.
It's about the best match you could, really the best match you could hope for on any card, but especially on a show that is, delayed by several weeks from airing on broadcast. I mean, I didn't think we'd be talking about Royal Quest, a couple weeks later, but here we are.
And Will Ospreay's match recommendation, he called it the best tag match he had ever seen. So maybe that went a long way. So he was ringside for it. So he got a front row seat for this match. Let's continue on here with. We'll talk quickly about this article in the Wrap. They spoke to Paul Levesque about the whole campaign behind Bray Wyatt and bringing him back, and going through like the success that they found with it. And they noted like the rating on September 23rd for SmackDown, and Extreme Rules had a 30% increase in total viewership year over year and became the most watched Extreme Rules in history, which is, basically we are comparing it to the last 2 years where it got onto Peacock, where now these shows are actually 1 year that Extreme Rules was on Peacock last year and then this year. So that would be the fairest comparison.
So it beat the 2021 edition of Extreme Rules. Right.
I mean, that's the most fair comparison, because of course it's going to be more watched on this platform than it was on the WWE Network or when it was a standalone pay-per-view. But nonetheless, it was up this year, so that is accurate. And I think everyone would agree this had a lot more interest this year than Roman Reigns against the Demon Finn Balor last year. So Paul Levesque was quoted in this article as stating, "We asked ourselves how we could bring back Bray Wyatt in the most engaging way possible. So we created the White Rabbit Project, intended to lead our audience down this literal rabbit hole of content to help build anticipation for Wyatt's return at Extreme Rules on Peacock. It started with flickering lights in arenas and continued with the release of other Easter eggs like hidden QR codes within episodes of SmackDown and Raw that led viewers to more clues that kept them guessing and tuning in each week. It culminated in what we believe was a massive payoff for our fans and for WWE." And they stated that the creative strategy paid off in terms of social engagement too. Running against the Major League Baseball playoffs, Extreme Rules was Saturday's most social program on October the 10th, while the event generated 2.7 million social media interactions in air.
Okay, wow. It makes it so much less cool when you're describing it as
tell us about this content play.
Social interactions and all these things. But no, listen, I mean, like I think he's right to be incredibly proud of this. again, we asked the question of like whether or not a campaign like this would have occurred under Vince McMahon. How involved we know this Rob Fee, obviously, seems to be somebody who's been credited with a lot of the ideas, of course. I'm sure along with Wyndham Rotunda for this, but like how much of involvement did Paul Levesque have himself, and how hands on was he with it all. I think it rightfully tells you that they see great success in it, and perhaps it's something that they'll be looking to replicate in similar fashion for other stars as they arrive. I will say, like, coming off of it on Monday, I should say even like last Friday and especially now Monday, like I don't know if like much of the sort of feeling and tone we had in the presentation of this White Rabbit stuff, I don't know if a lot of that felt like it was continued in Bray Wyatt's return, like just with the way they're so explicit with everything now. Yeah, I don't know, but again, follow up is everything. Yeah, and we'll see how well they can carry along this sort of like mystery, because I certainly don't feel like they're doing it with Miz and Dexter Lumis. And the new White Rabbit is what's the secret that Miz has that Dexter Lumis is trying to get.
Yeah, and as an add-on to our SmackDown ratings discussion last night was the fact that Brandon Thurston got the quarters, and while the number overall was largely unchanged from the week before, the final quarter did see a big growth for Bray Wyatt. So his quarter hour did do very well in comparison. So that is
Okay.
that does show there was interest for that last quarter with Bray Wyatt. And the last note is Raw from Monday night. 1,804,000 viewers, 0.50 in the 18 to 49 demo. So they were only down 1% in viewership. They were down 10% in 18 to 49. That was coming off the season premiere last week, but this was still their second best number against the NFL this season. Just a larger drop-off in the third hour. They fell 17% in viewers, 18.5 in 18 to 49 throughout the show. So it was obviously teasing that Miz Dexter Lumis match. It scared many people off of the third hour. They were not sticking around for Elias. They were not sticking around for the U.S. title match. They're like, Miz and Lumis, third hour, I'm out of here. So that was it. So they were going against the Monday Night Football game that did about 12 million viewers or so. And they actually had lesser competition because with the Yankees-Guardians game getting rained out, that was less competition on their plate on Monday night. So with the rain delay, it probably helped Raw.
What about Bachelor in Paradise, John?
How did Bachelor in Paradise do? Was it a 5-hour gauntlet on Monday night?
It was not 5 hours. I think these shows are like 2 hours, but I mean, it seems to
2 hours.
Yeah, did not top the night. That was Telemundo. It looks like, but as far as English speaking channel or Univision, I should say, Univision topped the night. But
this is a rare network show that SmackDown actually does higher than Bachelor in Paradise.
Wow. Okay.
So there you have it.
All right.
Well, have you watched?
Oh, I have. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to find time, of course, to catch up these days. They do like 2 hours Mondays and Tuesdays.
Of course.
Like it's the only thing that like competes in terms of wrestling, in terms of content time. Yeah.
Could you imagine a product? Yes, having multiple hours, multiple nights a week. I mean, imagine if they had imagine they did 3 hours on Monday night, 2 hours on Tuesday night, and then they did another 2 hours on Friday night.
It's coming, I'm sure. Yeah,
it's all there. All right, so that is all the latest ratings notes, and we will have a report up on Wednesday with the Tuesday night tussle between NXT and AEW.
You're calling it the Tuesday night tussle?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if that one's gonna stick.
Should I tweet out the results and just for old time's sake for the replies?
You mean the NXT results?
Both. I'll just put them both back to back.
Or the ratings?
Tweet. You mean AEW and NXT? Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, please. Yeah, for old time's sake, and just let them fight. Hey, quick plug here. Tickets are on sale right now for the Pro Wrestling's 5-year anniversary tussle. Saturday, November 19th at QXT's nightclub in Newark, New Jersey. Tickets are going very fast, especially our VIP tickets. So go to postwrestling.com/live if you intend to be there for Full Gear Weekend, of which we actually have a main event now. So
that's right.
Yeah,
you can come for the warm up, which will be myself and Wai Ting. So we're going to be doing a live Ask Away in person, taking your questions, and then Braden and Davey, they are cooking up a show that they will be warming up the crowd with, and many of the Post Wrestling family will be in attendance on November 19th, including Brandon Thurston, WH Park, even our man Neil, coming all the way in an airplane to visit.
Wow.
We will get to meet the man in person.
Some international and local flavor, of course, from Post Wrestling in and around the New Jersey area. So postwrestling.com/live. Get your tickets now. VIP tickets include access to the meet and greet as well as an event t-shirt. So do that if you're interested.
Buy your tickets. Tweet us. Let us know you're coming. And we are a month away from from Post Wrestling turning 5 years old. So all the news can be found at postwrestling.com. Wai and I are going to be back on Wednesday with a Wednesday edition of Rewind-A-Wai. We are reviewing the October 1983 WWF card from Madison Square Garden. I can only hope that you have started this card by now, Wai. You will not finish it by Wednesday.
I've started. I believe I'm on the Bob Backlund match, so I think I've got that in the cage match, and then like whatever filler that they have at the end to go.
There's some filler.
Yeah.
I have a lot of notes on this show, so look forward to that as we go back to October of 1983. It's
one of the oldest shows we've ever reviewed.
Yes. This of the Rewind-A-Wai era. I think it was pointed out we have reviewed The Wrestler, the movie The Wrestler, but in terms of an event,
doesn't count.
Yeah, this is the oldest event that we have reviewed. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to that. It's you have not watched the cage match yet?
Not yet. No.
Okay, well, that's going to be the focus, I think, of most of our discussion. That's all coming out Wednesday for all Post Wrestling Cafe members. And then Thursday, we've got MCU Later and the Wellness Policy. So a great time to be a Cafe member. You can tune into the Wellness Policy live at 3, and then we'll be up for everybody later that night. Wai, Neil, and Jordan Goodman chatting about fatherhood with Mike Murray, no less.
The Scarborough dad himself. Yeah. So join us live Post Wrestling, or if you're a Post Wrestling Cafe patron, we'll send out the link directly to you. But if you're not, just stay tuned to our social media. You'll find a link to join us live on Zoom Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. AEW Dynamite tonight from the Heritage Bank Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. We had Title Tuesday, and starting things off is the AEW Trios Championships match with Death Triangle defending against Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. And they did bring up the fact that Pentagon and Phoenix are coming off their respective matches at Triple Mania. So noting, Pentagon unmasking Viano 4 and Rey Fenix having his match with El Hijo del Vikingo. Two tremendous matches to close out Triple Mania, by the way, if you have not seen them. But here they are back several days later and opening up Dynamite. So we saw Chuck Taylor lifted up Phoenix in like a razor's edge position and then like dumped him onto Trent for what I wrote as something. I don't know what they were trying here, but it didn't look like it was met their expectation level. Bunch of dives by Death Triangle, all in tandem. There was a Tower of Doom onto Orange Cassidy. And then we see a pair of pile drivers to Penta. They all do the group hug. And then Phoenix catches Pac with the hammer and is telling him not to use it. And they start arguing. It leads to a roll-up by Orange Cassidy. Orange hits the orange punch, but can't make the cover. And then Penta goes for his Canadian Destroyer. Trent stops it, and it's turned into Strong Zero for a big near fall. And then Phoenix makes his comeback and hits the Fire Driver, pinning Trent in 11 minutes and 46 seconds, but then has more words for Pac afterwards, because how dare you try to use a hammer to keep these trios titles on us.
Mm-hmm. But then they did make up afterwards at the end, a bit of a hug. So
I feel like I wasn't going to use it on you. I was using it on our opponents. So just chill out. Like, it's a hammer. Who cares?
He's like, he should have said, I mean, I've been doing this for a whole month. Why didn't you tell me back then? Are you not
Don't
watching?
You watch Dynamite?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you think I've won all these titles?
Exactly. Yeah. The match itself, I thought, was tremendous. As I think we've seen before with these two trios. They went about like 10 minutes here with absolutely no breaks in action at all. It's almost to me like the perfect example of the type of pace and style you want from a trios match that distinguishes it from, you know, the rest of the I guess match types in AEW. It was really great. And then, you know, a bit of a follow up on the story here. We're starting to see Phoenix and Pentagon, you know, have issue with Pac now, but did you get the sense that this was kind of teasing a longer breakup story with the Death Triangle, or was this them making up and just kind of being the end of Pac and his cheating?
No, I think that this was designed to show like a rift between, you know, Phoenix's morals and Pac's villainous streak. So yeah, I think that this will be an issue that's expanded upon.
I'm happy to see like some continued story, and I'm hoping this actually means a real storyline for the Lucha Brothers, who have been tremendous, of course, in ring. They've gotten over plenty, just like, you know, via their in-ring action, but I can't really say much about like real story involving them as individuals. So maybe this changes that.
Jon Moxley is returning home. They showed a clip from the Road 2 series, and Shivani interviews Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter, and Hayter says by the end of the year, either her or Britt Baker will be interim women's champion. Baker cuts out interim, says one of them will be women's world champion, alluding to the fact that maybe we shouldn't be referring to the champion as interim with Thunder Rosa's status.
I feel like she's been building that up a lot, and I hope it means Thunder Rosa is ready to come back, you know, for that match. But at this point, I almost kind of forget she's the interim. She's been very active.
And that took us to Toni Storm and Hikaru Shida for the interim women's championship. The audience was chanting for both as they shake hands to start. And there's a hip attack, sending Shida off the apron to the floor. Shida hit a Rana and flying knee, followed that with a missile drop kick and then a Meteora. Storm comes back, released German into her hip attack, and then Shida misses the knee, bridging German by Storm for a 2 count before hitting Storm Zero and retains the title in 8 minutes and 42 seconds. A very nice, like, hard-hitting match between these two. You had the two baby faces, but that wasn't a negative with this crowd that seemed to go back and forth between both. And also an earlier than usual women's match. This was like 20 minutes into the show.
Second match of the night. Yeah. I wonder if it's because they see a bit more star power in a Toni Storm that, like, or maybe it doesn't make a difference, honestly. You know, is there really that big of a difference being the second last match of the night and being the second match of the night? At least not to me as a viewer. You know, I think Storm has been a fantastic champion thus far. She's been incredibly consistent in the ring, getting great matches out of seemingly everybody on the roster. Like you mentioned, John, you know, instituting a very hard-hitting style that everybody in the division seems to be more than willing to, you know, take part in. They also took no breaks here, cramming in a ton of action in his whatever time that they received. And I thought all of it looked pretty strong action-wise. So I wish there was more of a build as usual, you know, with some of these matches. The gist of the build that we had here, at least on TV, was a photo of these two from 10 years ago, right before the match. So clearly there was a lot more story that I think could have been told than just...
They said it was 10 years in the making, this match. What more do you want?
Well, to me, it was 1 week in the making, because that's when she made her return, and that's when they announced the match. So
they've been counting down for a decade, too.
If you're going to cram 10 years in 1 week, then I guess that's how you do it.
So Rebel and Jamie Hayter jump Toni Storm in the ring, and Baker comes out in her Steelers jersey to her music, and she is followed by Saraya, who runs down, tackling Britt Baker. They fight, and then Rio runs out, making her return. She has not been there for months, and attacks Rebel, who had grabbed a crutch, and hits a big high cross to Jamie Hayter, and it's Riho who tends to Toni Storm and leaves with her. So this is going to set up Riho taking on Jamie Hayter.
Toni Storm seems like she has a lot of friends, you know, or at least it seems like she has a new friend every single week show up to her aid. Like sometimes it's, I mean, at one point it was Rosa, then it was like Ember, then it was, Athena, and then it was Shida, and then it was Riho. So every week she's calling somebody new to...
Yeah, but then all these friends want to fight her for the title. So, I mean, maybe this is just their strategy. Get close to her, and then, boom, you're in.
Gotta be it. Yeah. No, I thought it was really cute how, like, Riho came out and she couldn't help but come out and smile and wave to the crowd before she realized, oh shit, I'm supposed to be fighting here, charging down to the ring. But I thought it was kind of fitting of
It's like Jeff Hardy rescuing Matt.
yeah. But in this case, like I just found it very endearing for the type of character and like sort of personality Riho tends to have. Um, I'm happy that she's back. I mean, I don't know what her status has been, but like it seems like her last trip into the US. I don't know if she was here long enough for them to actually do something with her, but it kind of feels like her presence has been pretty like, you know, not like non-existent for over a year plus. So I'm happy to see her in the mix. I think the women's division is in a pretty healthy spot right now, like because I think Toni Storm has been doing so well. So I'm happy to see Riho in the mix with like, really high caliber of talent that they have right now. So yeah.
Warjo, Way's favorite tag team name, responded to the Kingdom and said they can fight us 2-on-2 or 1-on-1. You can pick the title. So this is going to be the easiest title shots ever granted in AEW. These two just walk in and they have their choice. You can take us on in a tag match, or you can go for one of our titles. I mean, some nice options on the table here.
I mean, when you have a lot of titles, it's so are we officially putting to bed this like ranking system now? No updates on it for quite a while now.
I think it
doesn't matter.
I think it's asleep. It's not dead, but it's asleep.
It's asleep. How would they possibly bring it back at this point? They'll have to make up for a lot of. I guess maybe at the new year they'll just like restart. Maybe. I think it's gone. Like it was a great idea. It was novel for the time, and maybe even worked out to help. But at this point, it's just kind of more work than it probably needs to be.
Yeah, I think it created unnecessary headaches in certain parts. I think it sometimes got like unfair criticism. I liked like the concept of it, but I think people it was also an easy crutch to poke holes into. So I kind of see them, just slowly
they don't
phasing
need
it out. You're right. It doesn't affect the show one iota, to be quite honest. Renee Paquette spoke with FTR and asked when they're going to expand their tag title collection, since they're the number one contenders for the AEW belts. And they mention Dralistico and Dragon Lee, who are now the contenders for the AAA tag titles after Saturday. But their ultimate goal is the AEW tag titles. So Swerve and Keith Lee walk in, and they believe they deserve the next shot, and Keith Lee agrees with Swerve. So Dax proposes that next week in Virginia, they have a match to determine the number one contenders. So it will be FTR against Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, which was a tag match that has never entered my mind, but I'm very intrigued by for next Wednesday. They should have a hell of a match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, along with the Acclaim, like they're the two most, I guess, three most active, tag teams in the company right now. So I'm really looking forward to it. I love the way that like, Cash and Dax really just kind of set up their motivation to win the AEW Tag Team Championships here, because, they want to complete the year with the final and arguably most important belt in the collection. And it's almost like, you figure somebody would be happy enough like winning, 3 tag team championships, but it's almost like if you sometimes become so successful, if you don't get that last thing, it'll make it even worse, than not having any belts at all. It's like, you ever play like McDonald's Monopoly, which is like out right now. You like, they when I used to do this as a kid, I used to play McDonald's Monopoly, and like you would be able to collect all the stickers, and they would just leave one like per row, like completely tough to get, like one per row. Like
you would almost think that something
was on this,
was at foot.
You would think so, yeah, but that's how they get you, like, or like, when you used to collect like NHL stickers, remember like that, like when when McDonald's used to do that, you can collect the hockey team logos.
I more remember the hockey ones. I never was really the Monopoly.
And that was the same. Like, you collect the rows for every division, and then they would there'd be one team that like was impossible to find. And that's how I think FTR feels. They've collected everything, but the one that is the toughest to get, there's very limited supply of. So I feel their pain is all I'm trying to say.
Well, I think it's an intriguing match for next week. It probably sets up the Full Gear title match, and you either have FTR going for the last set of belts, or you do the third match with Lee and Strickland. I think FTR is the stronger play for Full Gear.
It's a far more intriguing number one contenders match than the title match that's actually taken place for the titles versus trademark match on Friday. I mean, yeah, I think FTR at this point probably should be getting a proper pay-per-view match. I think the Acclaimed, Swerve in Our Glory match still has to happen at some point, but I think for pay-per-view, you can actually make the argument they're both pretty big. Could it be a three-way even?
Yeah, it's possible. It gets a little. Yeah, it's possible. You could do a three-way. They do love to get as many of their guys onto pay-per-view.
Just because they might just want a proper heel team, but at least actually in AEW that doesn't matter so much.
Marvez interviewed Jay Lethal, who was with Darby Allin. They agreed to no physicality, and then Jay Lethal challenges Darby to a rematch after losing 2 weeks ago. Darby says, "I'm just going to keep beating you and beating you." So Dutt calls him a trash panda, and they insult Darby, and then they beat the hell out of him. So they went against the gentleman's agreement of no physicality, which I guess is not legally binding in AEW.
No, you got to get one of the lawyers, just Mark Sterling or something on it to be official, I guess.
Well, they not only beat the hell out of Darby, but then they closed a garage door on him, and then Lethal applied a figure four with the man trapped underneath the garage door.
Yeah, so he really can't escape.
So that will be a future match at a later date.
Trash panda. He called him like a raccoon. Isn't that what a trash panda is?
Well, when he said that, I immediately thought that David Finlay was going to appear from somewhere and destroy Darby.
Hey,
he's in Japan right now.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, Lethal said, or Dutt said, a personal friend let them know that what Darby's weakness is. So who's the personal friend? Who are they alluding to? Were they alluding to anybody?
I don't know. How many personal friends does he have on this roster? It's Sting.
It doesn't have to be on the roster.
Okay, well, maybe he can go elsewhere then. I don't know. Someone in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there was an attempt to set up a mystery here or not, but I just caught the line.
Then the big segment was Tony Schiavone in the ring with William Regal. And immediately MJF interrupts and comes out. And MJF takes off the ring. He says he is not here to fight, while Regal is all ready to throw down with his brass knuckles on. And MJF, we are ready for another chapter in the man's very complicated origin story. He is assembling a comic book in his AEW run. And this is its own volume.
Autobiography.
Yes.
Realistically, I think we're going to get a hell of an outside interference video from Brian Mann compiling all of this, I bet.
So as we alluded to last week, Andrew Thompson had brought this story up that I guess he's talked about in the past. So he's going to give us not the Reader's Digest version. He's giving us the entire encyclopedia. He says that when he was 19, after training for 1 year, he was pulled aside by his trainers Pat Buck and Brian Myers and told that they got him some extra work in WWE. It's a very famous image that people grabbed from MJF playing security with Samoa Joe back at a takeover in 2015. So he drove to the Barclays Center for the opportunity, and the extras were spoken to by Regal, and then they were set out to have tryout matches in front of Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, Adam Pearce, and Regal. And MJF recalls watching the first match and Malenko telling the two to get out of the ring. And so he was next and knew that the pressure was on and said, "I wasn't fighting for a contract. I was fighting for my life because professional wrestling is my life." And after the match he had, Regal pulled him aside and took him into a room and said, "You have 3 minutes to sell me on yourself." And boy, did I. And after this promo he cut, he said Regal's jaw was on the floor and said, "I'm going to get you a job today." And MJF immediately realized that he's now going to be a superstar. And then he was asked his age, and he told Regal he was 19 at the time, and Regal told him that's much too young. But he said, what I am going to do for you, there are 3 people in this business who I've put my name to, and that's Claudio, Danielson, and Moxley. And I would be willing to put my name next to yours if you will just send me a match and a promo each month, and we'll continue to stay in contact. So he sent him a match and a promo the next month. Thanks. Then the second month, same reply. And then the third month, he sent him a match and a promo. And William Regal gave him a much lengthier response this time. And there, the man had the receipts on his phone. He pulls up this email from 2015 from William Regal. Max, I'm a very busy man. I've got talent from all over the world, and I've just had to sit for minutes watching you, quote, show me your acting skills. Do not reply to this. But how does this make me say, oh, I know, let's hire Max? Make a name for yourself in the wrestling world and you'll get noticed. That means being a high-level performer. When you do, trust me, I'll know. Unfortunately for you, the game has changed. The WWE exclusively hires the best talent in the world with the top world-class athletes. When you're one of them, then maybe send me your stuff. Yours sincerely, William Regal.
Okay, so what era are we talking about here? You know, and does this check up? Like, obviously, like we could discuss how much truth there is in all this, of which I'm willing to believe there's a great deal of it. But if I'm MJF, I think acting would be exactly the thing that, like, you know, that era of WWE they'd be looking for. But Regal was saying that he wanted to see more action. He wanted to see more wrestling. Is that right?
Yeah. I guess that was.
And that spells to me the dichotomy between the disconnect between perhaps what was going on in the Performance Center and what Vince McMahon was looking for on the main roster.
Well, remember, 2015 is also the year he sends in his audition for Tough Enough, and they don't pick him.
Oh, okay. Anyway, please continue.
So he pulls up this email, and this is an incredible delivery by MJF. Like, you have to watch this. And then he goes on to say, that's the email you sent to a child with a dream, and you squandered it. I wanted to quit wrestling and quit my life. I wanted to kill myself, but I realized that if I did, you and the naysayers would win. Now the tables have turned and you're a sad, withered old man who got fired, and now you've snuck into my company after sticking to talent far better than you were. And I'm MJF. On top of the business, a generational talent, and your former employees would be willing to take several human lives to get me to put pen to paper in the bidding war of 2024. I read that email every day, not to have a chip on my shoulder, but to laugh, because that's what I think of you now as, a joke. And I'm about to become AEW champion of the world. This crowd was just in awe of this man's delivery, and they gave him a standing ovation at the end of this. And there was nobody that was in a greater pressure situation than William Regal, who had to come back after this and did a hell of a job that we'll get to. But the first half of this, I mean, this was just incredible.
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. You know, it's sort of like the sort of depth of storytelling we really don't often see in professional wrestling. And I don't know, like there are segments out there where you can kind of tell when MJF walks out, it's going to be one of those segments. You know, like it was, you know, this you got a similar feeling when he came out to talk to Punk. You know, when you're getting a serious MJF, you get results like this that I feel like we'll be discussing for a long time. Like these aren't just, you know, week of sort of moments. Like these are the types of segments we'll be discussing for years to come. I love the fact that because like in talking about tryout matches, what is what is a tryout match in the context of a real sport? He did make sure to say, I won my tryout match and then blank, as if to say like the tryout matches were to show who is the better physical competitor in a real athletic contest, you know. And throughout this entire thing, what I'm trying to say is kayfabe was still maintained.
Yeah, it's a really good attention to detail you caught there. So Regal gets the microphone. Dude, this crowd is booing Regal. How dare you send that email to MJF? And he starts off stating he left at the age of 16 to the carnival to try and get into this industry, and talked about how people that age should not be getting beaten up for a living. And he saw something in Max at 19 that he sees now, that he would be a big star. I wanted to light a fire under you. And if an email has stuck with you for 7 years, then you've had it easy. And then he shifts focus to MJF putting his hands on Tony Schiavone several weeks ago. How that's one thing, that's a line you never cross. And he knew that MJF had it in him, but let him down by taking shortcuts. And you haven't proven anything to me. Don't take any shortcuts. And he tells him to be the devil as he turns his back and gives him his back to attack him and says, be the devil, or you can be a victim and cry. And MJF is winding up with the ring on, but he hesitates and he can't do it as Regal just smirks and says, you have a lot to prove. And he left us with an unbelievable segment between two guys that were just on fire for 15 minutes here.
100%. Yeah. I didn't think MJF would be any sort of question, but like Regal to me was being more tested here than he probably has in decades on the microphone, at least. We saw the guy upon his first appearance in AEW, and while he sounded good in that segment, I mean, it went long. It probably felt a little bit more rough, considering maybe the shape one has to be in, the sharpness one has to be in order to do this on live TV. And he had every bit of it here. Like, this was, I mean, certainly the best Regal promo I've heard in years. And I'll have to really kind of dig back to see if he even had this sort of platform back in his heyday, if he was even able to cut a promo like this. But he brought in not just great delivery, but, good logic, like for the reason that he sent a pretty dickish email. If it's a true email here, I was doing it to motivate you, like sort of like your classic excuse. But clearly it worked. I mean, if that was the intent, it sounded good, got the crowd back on his side, and that's certainly more than you can ask for of most people coming after a promo like that.
Yeah, and it leaves it open too for something down the road where you could even see these two aligning with each other at some point. Like Regal as like the babyface in the Blackpool Combat Club. Like, I don't know how much legs that one has down the road, but if you're going to do this story of MJF getting the title and then in his contract year, if he's going to stay or go, having him attached to Regal that is so tied to the head of WWE now, like there's a dynamic there that I don't know if it's the wisest story to be telling on AEW programming, but it is there for the taking if you're going to go there.
Potentially. Who knows, like by that time, if MJF will be a babyface or a heel or vice versa with Regal. But, a talent like William Regal's, you could really apply to any sort of like wrestler who needs that sort of mouthpiece. And clearly, like he still got it, going toe to toe here with Regal like this. So what do you see for MJF here? This was obviously like motivation to set up for him doing the noble thing and not cashing in at an opportunistic time, and instead doing a predetermined cash in later on. Do you think that's where the babyface teasing ends, or are we going to continue with this like further MJF potential babyface turn?
Yeah, it does feel like they are going to go into this match with sort of that in between for MJF here. So, I mean, how it culminates in the story, I mean, it could all be a device that he goes and, that this could certainly set up the title win, and then he's, does something despicable that keeps him in the heel role for a while. But I think it's going to be constantly battling this crowd that wants to be behind this guy. So maybe you just sort of sense where the crowds are going in the lead up to this and sort of plan accordingly.
Anytime like he comes out and says like the type of real story like he did tonight, he's going to get the crowd on his side. If anything, like just because of the talent that I think is required in a performance in telling a story like that, but also because the context like leaves you incredibly sympathetic for somebody like him. He needs to though like act upon that sort of anger and rage in a way that is despicable, and that like in a way that you can't cheer for. So I think this was a good way of getting him to agree to challenging Moxley on a certain date rather than cashing in. But he's going to have to do something nefarious, I think, to get. He's always to me going to be better as a heel. And if there's a time where that's simply not working, then maybe you turn him babyface. But for now, I imagine he'll continue to flirt with the idea of turning, especially as he leads up to threatening to leave AEW for WWE.
A must-see segment from Wednesday night for sure. From Tuesday night. Renee interviewed the Acclaimed, and they are going to take on the Varsity Athletes this Friday. And
I can't believe they're going with that name. Yes, I mean, it's got to be is there any reason? Like, are they going to eventually have another match with the Varsity Blondes? Because if not, and they're just going to keep that name. I think it's such a bad name.
Well, I don't know. We've heard nothing from the Varsity Blondes to protest this. So it's titles versus trademarks on Friday, and they are going to stomp Shark Mark in the nuts. That's the promise.
Shark Mark?
Yeah, that's what they called him. Shark Mark.
What's so bad about being a shark?
It's not an endearing term. So, and it rhymes. So
Shark's not endearing. Shark's like king of the ocean.
Well, they're predators.
What's wrong with that?
They're out for blood.
Okay. I'm way more excited about the number one contenders match next week than this match.
The titles versus trademarks.
Yeah.
Renee did her sit down with Danielson and Yuta. Renee asks Danielson, how did you feel about losing to Chris Jericho last week? Not great. He had high hopes for Daniel Garcia. He could surpass what he's done from a technical wrestling standout. He could be the best wrestler we've ever seen. And Yuta's just shaking his head, smiling. And Renee follows up on this response. Yuta says, how could you be surprised at what Garcia did? Me and Claudio could have seen it a mile away. His video says Dragon Slayer on it. And he thought it meant something when he bled for the Blackpool Combat Club. I shouldn't have met my hero because it obviously means nothing to you. So Daniel's other child was not happy here.
How do you manage? John, you tell me, as a father of two, how do you manage giving equal attention to both of your children when when you're trying to pray as one, but not the other?
Yeah, I guess. If one of them ends up wanting to be a sports entertainer over a pro wrestler, that's just a divide you need to accept.
Yeah. Hey, I like this. It's more storytelling for Wheeler Yuta coming off the MJF program, in which I feel like he obviously like you're not gonna look amazing standing next to MJF, but he also to me like looked a lot better than I expected, and this is now more material for him to further his I guess acting ability, promo ability, and going up against Bryan Danielson in a sort of like a jealous kid storyline is a wonderful follow-up. So we'll see what Yuta does. I think as a match, I think it'll be tremendous. So what did you think of Renee like doing this sort of like sit down interview stuff?
It's fine. It didn't stand out in a big way on the show, but I think she should be utilized for more of these. I think they need to be doing more of these. I think the segment would have been more effective if it had like another minute or two. Like it just felt very rushed and fit into the show. Like this was all of like 90 seconds. It's kind of hard to get the impact of what a sit down interview should accomplish.
I feel that way with like even the video packages. You know, sometimes they're so fleeting that like they're almost just kind of pretty pictures. But you know, something like about this, of which I think Renee is obviously perfect like for this type of role and then some. But I also always felt like Jim Ross could have done a lot more of these because I always felt he was really good at them. And with Renee now kind of assuming this role, I don't know if there's much for JR to do at all besides being a third voice on Rampage, fourth voice on Rampage.
The ROH.
By the way, a bunch of people are saying it's shart mark, as in sharding, like a combination of shit and fart.
On behalf of both of us, we are so sorry that we misheard. Shart mark.
Huh?
Great. Chris Jericho and Dalton Castle for the ROH Championship is next. Big entrance for Dalton Castle. We have Ian Riccaboni on commentary, and Castle runs around the ring.
Really big. With like how many boys did he have?
A lot of 10? Boys. Yeah. It was quite the elaborate entrance for him.
It was the type of entrance that because please correct me if I'm wrong. Was this not Dalton Castle's first singles match in AEW TV or Dynamite at least? Like
singles match?
Has he had a singles match? He did
a battle of the belts.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's had sporadic appearances.
I just don't think his presence has been like anything significant at all on AEW TV. So but this was the type of entrance where you didn't even have to see any of those other things. All you have to know was prior Ring of Honor champion, and then you just see the incredible amount of production and charisma that went to him coming out here, and you know he's a big deal.
Yeah, I think the promo did a great job last week in establishing himself or reestablishing himself, and then the entrance was a nice touch for tonight's match. So Castle re-enters the ring, suplexes Jericho around. The boys go after Jake Hager on the floor and take his bucket hat. So then Hager snaps and destroys the boys and reclaims his hat. Castle then applies the Julie Newmar submission. Jericho breaks free, goes for the walls. Then a lion salt is stopped as Castle grabs hold of him and turns it into a German. Codebreaker is countered with a bangarang, and Jericho kicks out of the bangarang. And then Castle spins, Jericho ducks, and he lands the Judas effect in 12 minutes and 27 seconds. And they point out that Jericho did not cheat to win the match. He won fair.
He did not. Yeah. I guess if you don't count all the Jake Hager stuff on the outside. Hager also...
he had four guys on top of him. You're allowed to wreak havoc once it's 4-on-1.
Hager also introduced this thing where so he's been wearing the bucket hat, and the boys took his hat off, and that's what got him to get really angry as he destroyed all of them, and as he screams, "Don't touch my hat." It's really funny.
Has anyone ever ripped your hat off your head?
It's the worst. It's embarrassing. Yeah, my hair's all fucked up. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's a real slight.
Yeah, somebody grabbed my elf hat. Remember that?
And you nearly put a man to sleep.
I bangaranged him almost. Yeah, hot match. Fun and memorable in terms of charisma. Castle immediately got over. And this was a great outing for him, I thought.
Jericho says that ROH champions are out, ring announcers out, even commentators. And the Jericho Appreciation Society, they take Ian Riccaboni from the broadcast area, and they're going to put Ian Riccaboni out. When Jerry Lynn comes out and rips the ROH belt away from Jericho, he stands up to him, and Jericho attacks Jerry Lynn, lifts him up, and delivers the world's safest pile driver to Jerry Lynn on top of the belt, as they note that Lynn had reconstructive neck surgery. And this man has not had a match in 9 years.
No, there's no match. This was the spot.
I would think this should be it. This is maybe their way of just, it's a check mark next to Jerry Lynn's name that they did a spot, because I don't think you want to push it with a match with this.
Oh, man. I don't think so. And I don't think they need to. I'm surprised they went with the tombstone pile driver even, for
he was very, very careful putting him down. It tells me I think this is the most Jerry Lynn is going to be doing.
But, a Judas effect, I think, would have sufficed, but still, they wanted to claim he, another notch on the belt in ROH champions that he's taken out. So, I thought the entire segment was really strong between the Riccaboni tease and this Jerry Lynn thing. So I think the end goal here is Eden Riccaboni. He's really at the top of the mountain at the end of all of this, I think.
Is that the match?
Yeah, I think that's what you set up for a Final Battle.
People laugh. That would probably be. There was a SmackDown episode that they built around Adam Pearce and Paul Heyman or something like that. And dude, it did some crazy number, like just out of nowhere. It was the notion of Adam Pearce having to fight.
It's going to get awkward next time these two call a match together.
I'm wondering if I'm just looking at the list here of like some the other potential ones. Like we've mentioned
Daniels, Lethal wouldn't make so much sense just given like he's a heel and probably shouldn't be taking a loss to Jericho for.
Jay Briscoe has, the can he appear on AEW TV, that issue. Davey Richards is out there. Eddie Edwards is out there. Nigel McGuinness is an interesting one. Homicide.
Cody.
Yeah, Cody.
How about that roll call that they did earlier, huh?
Yeah, we did technically see Punk and we saw Cody. They did do
Rollins.
The roll call. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see where that story progresses, but a good segment overall between the match and the post-match stuff here. They recap the Jungle Boy Luchasaurus story with Christian Cage stating that Luchasaurus is moving on. He was the brains of the tag team and they are going after gold now. Got to be a lot more specific than that in this company.
Yeah, which title, buddy? You want the All Atlantic? You want the ROH 6-man championships? The Pure, the TV, the World, TBS, TNT? What else we got here?
I'm going for the New Japan Television Championship, and I'm bringing it back here.
New Japan World Championship? Yeah, please.
Rampage on Friday.
Keep that away from this side of the world, please. It should be banned, really.
It's a live Rampage on Friday from Daly's Place. So titles versus trademarks, the Acclaimed against the Varsity Athletes with Shart Mark. Penelope Ford against Willow Nightingale. Preston Vance against Roosh in a Leave Me Alone match. And Hook defending the FTW title against Ari Daivari.
Yeah, I mean, this is a second standalone Rampage that they've got. And I can't say it feels standalone worthy.
Well, that's what we said last week, and it did a surprisingly good number. And I can't tell you why last Friday did as well as it did, because that was not a lineup that screamed, oh, turnaround is coming.
Clearly the key then. Yeah, put out a typical Rampage.
I mean, they threw out it. We might have laughed. It had a stip with the contracts and stuff, and they're doing the same thing this week with like the Acclaim trying to get their scissoring back. Like maybe that will run dry very quickly too if you just throw, these 1 week buildups of stip matches. Dynamite next Wednesday is in Virginia with FTR against Swerve in Our Glory, #1 contenders match. Riho against Jamie Hayter, Chris Jericho and Daniel Garcia against Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, and Bryan Danielson against Sammy Guevara. No, that's a very good lineup for Wednesday.
Strong, yeah.
The baddies are asked by Jade, "Where is my belt?" And they don't know, but they have heard that Nyla Rose will be in Jacksonville on Friday. So Jade says, well, I'm going to be there too. And I'm going to demand my belt back. And Tony Khan, if Nyla doesn't give me my belt back, I'm going to hijack your show for 60 minutes.
See, that I would kind of be interested in seeing. It would make
60
it a bit more
minutes of Jade Cargill just sitting there in the middle of the ring.
Well, doing push-ups, whatever. Like, it would make it a bit more memorable than a typical edition of Rampage, I think.
Main event, Jon Moxley, Hangman Page for the AEW Championship. And Page met Moxley in the crowd during Moxley's entrance, and they fought around with Page climbing on top of the tunnel and moonsaulting off onto Moxley. Moxley was bleeding before they even got into the ring to begin the match.
Sort of moonsault, just like at the beginning of the match, Jesus. Like as I approach my 40s, be thankful for those knees while you have them. God.
Way used to do those moonsaults all the time at 30,
Oh
but
man, of
not
course.
anymore. MJF is watching with the chip, and then later they went to the private box and he was gone. So they were teasing that he was going to do the cash-in. Regal is on commentary. He's worried about the blood loss for Moxley. There was a dead eye onto the edge of the apron, and then it's Page with the fall-away slam off the top, and this is where it's Page who hits his big lariat, and then Moxley with his version that ultimately ends the match at 11 minutes and 55 seconds. Again, they would not show Page on camera. They just went to the announcers who were just trying to just hold things together for the final 10 minutes of the show. And they noted the stretcher coming out. They went over the lineups. And then Moxley just had to get onto the microphone. And he said that he hopes and prays that Page has a full recovery and can do what he loves, and mentioning his child. It's a dangerous game. You have to have the guts to play it. And he heard about someone that's been talking shit and calls out MJF. So MJF comes out with Bryce Remsburg, and he has the chip, and he's about to start when he rolls to the floor and hands the chip to Regal and grabs the microphone, stating he wants people to know he's a man when he cashes in, and he wants Moxley to be at 110% and have no excuses when he beats him, so that there's no question of who is better. And he is cashing in at full gear, and for the first time in my miserable life, I'm going to earn it. And it ends with Moxley cutting a promo on him, which was just censored to death by TBS. I'm fine with them censoring language, but they have got to have a smoother edit for the language, where instead of just the like amplified crowd noise, my ears are ringing from this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Bleeping, I tend to prefer, but
just beep. That's fine. It's like, it sounds way more effective that way. But that's how the show ended. I don't think anyone was really engaged in this ending because I think everyone was concerned about Page, but they did want to get, there was a big angle to shoot at the end of the show to set up your main event of the pay-per-view. So I give credit to all those involved to just try and steer the ship to the end of the show. Like, it's 9 minutes left in the show. That is an eternity on live television. And you're just kind of, this ending with MJF, like, we know how AEW structures their shows. That was probably confined to about 60 to 90 seconds at the end of the show, and they had to stretch it to like 9 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. I think beyond, the 2, 3, maybe even 4, including the referee, like, incredible performers that you have in the ring. I don't think there's a person you can count on for a situation like this better than a Jon Moxley. And then, of course, an MJF as well. Two people who are so incredibly quick. A Jon Moxley who I think you can rely on to improvise a great show closing promo just on a moment's notice, and he absolutely did that. He sounded incredible. He'd be just like, I would count on him to, like, stretch on any sort of broadcast. Like, he should really call F1 during rain delays. I guarantee you it'd be a really entertaining show. But I also felt like the way they got here, just with all the build that they did with the Regal and MJF segment earlier, to this point where MJF, the chicken shit heel, can, logically, understandably decide not to cash in this Money in the Bank type of stipulation and instead going the route of choosing a predetermined match. I thought that was all incredibly well done. Now you get the sense, because of that great segment earlier, that this is more than just winning the championship for MJF, more than just, a bargaining tool for his eventual bidding war with the WWE. It's his way to prove his self-worth to himself, to William Regal, and it's a way to almost like kind of atone for this thing that's been, like a sticking point for him in his life that almost, admittedly, he says, drove him to want to kill himself, like, at one point in his life. So it becomes a lot more bigger than just a championship. And I thought all of that storytelling really went into this moment and did a great job. So I think everybody did really well improvising here, or at least like the people that were called upon to improvise did a great job. And of course, we all hope that Hangman Page is okay after this.
Yeah, obviously it's too early to, have any, real update on Hangman Page. A lot of tweets from talents just hoping for the best for Page. So a very, very unfortunate moment on on Tuesday night's broadcast, and that's going to overshadow everything else on the show. But I would say overall, it was a very good episode of the show up until the injury at the end.
Yeah. I thought it was still a very good Dynamite, despite the, misfortune afterwards. I thought they put on a hell of a show between several great in-ring matches, from the opener to even the main event to the women's match. A promo segment like you got between MJF and William Regal is like, you don't get those too often, in watching professional wrestling. And that was incredibly strong and worth watching. The whole show I felt was very strong and worth watching. Castle versus Jericho. I thought Castle had a great appearance. So very good show.
All right. Let's go to feedback. If you have any super chats, you can also get those in if you are in the live YouTube chat. And
yeah, we've got one super chat here. This comes to us from Dickie Bird. Dickie Bird sends a super chat just to say, hope you are feeling better, John. What's the update on John Pollock? How are you doing?
I am doing better today. It was the worst of it, I think, was the Saturday through yesterday. I was definitely struggling by the end of yesterday's show. It's just a lot of fatigue, coughing fits, my energy has just been zapped. But today just felt bad. I actually got out of the house today and went for a walk. So that was the first time I had been out in 3 days. So that was good. So good. I'm hoping to test in the next day or so, and hopefully I'm through the worst of it. But I appreciate the kind message.
How have you been passing the time outside of work?
Oh, dude, I've watched some movies. I've been locked down in my basement all week long. I watched Clerks III tonight, the third one that just came out.
The verdict?
I always step in it when I say these things, so I'll talk about it in a few years.
You can talk about whether or not you like the movie.
He said it was really good. Now I'm gonna go into the movie with the inability to think that it might not be good because he said it was good. See, and now I know it's good.
Now you're really stepping in it by making fun of mocking the people who complain about spoilers.
Very nice opening with My Chemical Romance. It's a totally different vibe than the second film. But
okay,
I'll leave it at that.
Do you recommend it? Can you say that?
Yes, I totally recommend it. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
If you're a Kevin Smith fan, it's one though. Sometimes there are. I don't think this will ruin anything, but sometimes there's volumes in a series where. I will say a positive is the fact that, you can watch this one as a fan, or you can just watch it on its own and enjoy it for as it is. This one, you 1000% need to watch the first two to truly get the third one and get the most out of it, because you're going to not receive so many of the things in the third one if you have not seen the first two. So that would certainly be a recommendation.
Appreciate it. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, let's go to forum.postwrestling.com. Do you want to start off, John, with Senior Crest?
Yes. I love AEW. This episode ruled. I hope the Hangman thing isn't serious. I thought it was part of the show. That was not part of the show. Storm and Shida was real good, and it was refreshing to see Toni roll out a good match. Overall, great show.
Thank you so much for that piece of feedback. Let's go to Cody from Maine, who says, I genuinely view this as an all-time great Dynamite. Ring work, mic work, the hype packages, everything just clicked. But for now, all that is secondary. Hoping that by the end of your review, positive news comes in regarding Hangman. Hopefully AEW learned from past mistakes and handled this appropriately. So no news. Not entirely sure what he's referring to of AEW learning from past mistakes. But no update.
We go next to Steve, who writes, the real main event of the show was MJF and William Regal on the mic. Amazing showing for both men. Having someone that can hang with MJF on the mic was awesome. I don't know who Dalton Castle was before last week. Now I'm a fan. His entrance and whole character is really fun, but he can hang pretty good in the ring too. I'm a little jealous that Cincinnati got an MJF promo and we got staring from the balcony in Toronto, but it is what it is. We got the Acclaimed in the ring, so it's a fair split. Great show. Ours was better. Great meeting the post-wrestling crew last week. P.S. I wrote this before the end of the show. Really hope Hangman is okay. That seemed pretty scary. That's Steve from Cambridge. Yes.
Did you think it was a better
meet and greet?
Did you think it was a better show last week?
I would say last week's show,
because I do not as a viewer, but I don't know if you view that live. Last week was good too.
You thought tonight's show was better?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I think this one was. I probably would have said that. I just think like the ending kind of puts a cloud over this week's show.
Right.
But I thought they were very similar in terms of quality.
Okay. Okay. Let's cut in here with the forum feedback to go to Biff Lawson, who sends $10 in a super chat to say, "See you in Newark." Yes. Could be good
Biff
to
Lawson, world famous
catch up
Biff
with
Lawson,
Biff.
will be
Yeah,
joining
absolutely.
us as well. So there,
Hell
you
yeah.
can join Biff and all other listeners too. Saturday, November 19th, QXT's nightclub, minutes away from Moxley versus MJF later that night. We can get all your predictions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Biff, for the support and the excuse for us to remind the audience one more time about that show.
Okay, let's go to. You're up next.
Let's go to Benjamin, who says, "I started the show off trying to think of a clever joke about Baron Corbin's ring gear yesterday. Now all I'm thinking, like we all are, is that Hangman Page is okay. Godspeed, Adam Page."
Kate from Montreal. On track to be one of the best episodes of Dynamite all year, but clearly it ended as a stark reminder of how incredibly dangerous this business is. Hearing Taz and the other commentators so rattled was unnerving in the extreme. Really hope that Hangman is okay. Yeah, that I always feel terrible when the broadcasters are in that spot. It's very, very difficult in the moment to have to be there, and you understand what's happening. You're seeing it in front of you, and you've got to just keep the ship going. It's live television. It's a very difficult position for those broadcasters to be in.
We got a Muggin who says the main event had a scary, abrupt end with Hangman getting knocked out. Mox and Friedman, this is me. Yeah, Mox and Friedman made lemonade out of lemon and put all eyes towards Full Gear. Made lemonade out of the lemon.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All the best to Hangman Page, and I hope he has a safe and speedy recovery. Speaking of MJF, he and Regal had one hell of a promo exchange that added even more layers to Friedman's loudmouth bravado. FTR is finally going to get a straight-up tag match on Dynamite for the first time in months, and Jericho continues to piss all over what ROH stands for. Who's going to be the final boss in Jericho's run, he says.
I mean, Samoa Joe seems like the obvious pick unless they go somewhere else.
For a pay-per-view caliber match, I think that seems like the biggest name you can go to.
Yeah, if you've crossed like Danielson would have been an option, but you've done that. So I think that Joe
Several
would be
times.
the natural to go to. And the last piece of feedback is Saeed from Vancouver. Hell of a show. Rio back is wonderful to see. Really hope Hangman is okay. Report from people there that he gave a thumbs up on his way out. Also, NXT ended with Theory coming out and flashing his briefcase, taking it as they don't want Roman to lose the title. So will they have him cash in on NXT? Yeah, we should note that between WWE, AEW, and now Impact with Bully Ray, they are all doing their version of the cash in.
Hey, man, it's a wonderful dramatic storytelling device, so I don't really blame them. Yeah, it depends how well they can do it. The idea of Theory possibly cashing in on the NXT championship instead of the WWE, I mean, good for them for trying to tease it. I suppose it's possible if you don't want to make Theory look silly, but I think he looks silly just going for the NXT championship.
Wait, didn't Paul say it's the developmental brand? Why would the main roster guy go for the developmental brand title?
Exactly. Like, is he going to take a pay cut as well to get back on the NXT roster? You know, like you figure on the hierarchy of titles, it'd be like, yeah, the SmackDown, it's the world, the Universal, and then it'd be the United States, and then it'd be the Intercontinental. So why not go for one of those? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. The Theory thing to me, it's like whatever they end up doing, I don't know. I don't see it being.
I think it'd be such a waste of a Money in the Bank. I think
it's already a waste of a Money in the Bank, to be quite honest.
Well, I much prefer the idea of like you've suggested, like having Kevin Owens win it off of him or something. So, man,
yeah, I mean,
that would be weird.
They could certainly put it on someone that they are actually going to, have as a viable challenger, and I just don't see Austin Theory as anywhere near there. So him challenging Braun Breaker is fine with me.
Hey, Biff Lawson sends another $10 just to say you're welcome.
My goodness.
Wow.
We look forward to hanging out with Biff in Newark. Okay.
Thank you so much, Biff. And then one more from Muggin here, who wants to clarify that he wants Hangman to be all right. We did not think that you did not mean that, Muggin. So thanks for the clarification, though. I understand. Yeah, I was just kind of thrown off. I thought it was always like I thought the saying was something else, but lemonade
You got
out
it
of
right.
lemon. Yeah, you got it.
Life gives you
got it.
lemons, make lemonade.
That's it. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I feel like some lemonade now.
Do you have some?
No, I don't. So I'm gonna have some water.
You gotta wait till the morning.
Yeah. Wednesday, up next is going to be out. Braden and Davey will have a review of NXT. They're also going to go through their thoughts on Dynamite, hoping that we have good news about Hangman Page on Wednesday. But thank you to everyone for tuning in for the special Tuesday night edition of Rewind-A-Dynamite. We'll be dropping Rewind Away, covering WWF at Madison Square Garden from October 1983, Wednesday evening at postwrestlingcafe.com. Cafe shows this week as well. MCU later on Thursday. Rewind to SmackDown on Friday. And then this Saturday, we will have a Halloween Havoc post show with Braden Harrington and Andrew Thompson, and a UFC 280 post show with myself and Eric Marcotte, going live Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Wade, who have you got, Charles Oliveira or Islam Makhachev?
Yeah.
Is it too early in the week to ask you a prediction?
You know what? No, I'm waiting for the weigh-ins. Yeah, ask me later.
Because Charles Oliveira missed weight in his last fight, so that's a very smart prognostication to have ahead of time. Exactly. Okay, that is it. Thank you for tuning in, and that concludes Rewind.